Welcome to our deep dive. Today, it's deep work we're diving into. And we've got a whole bunch of great material for you today. A mix of, excerpts and articles, summaries, all inspired by Cal Newport's book.
It's a really fascinating topic.
It is. Our mission is to kind of unpack this whole concept of deep work. Why is it so valuable, and how can we actually, practically weave it into our lives? You know?
Especially in today's world.
Right. It's like this lost art almost. And speaking of that, did you know that Bill Gates used to do these think weeks?
I did not know that.
He'd isolate himself completely, no distractions, just reading and thinking deeply.
Wow.
It's fascinating. And apparently that's how his famous internet tidal wave memo was born, the one that totally changed Microsoft's direction.
Yeah, that's a great illustration of how deep work can lead to those breakthroughs,
Huh.
those aha moments that really shift everything.
Exactly.
Before we go too far, I think it's important to clarify the difference between deep work and what's often called shallow work.
Okay, so deep work being that focused, intense concentration, pushing our cognitive abilities to the max. What does shallow work look like?
Yeah, shallow work is all those tasks we do in a kind of scattered, distracted way.
Yeah.
Constantly checking emails, attending back-to-back meetings that could have been emails.
Yeah.
Just got pulled in a million directions.
Yeah. So not that those tasks are bad, but they don't require our full, mental capacity.
Right.
And if we're not careful, they can kind of take over our whole day.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to a crucial point Cal Newport makes, and economists like Brynjolfsson and McAfee too. It's the deep work hypothesis,
Okay.
which suggests that deep work is becoming increasingly rare in today's economy, while simultaneously its value is skyrocketing.
That's fascinating.
It's this paradox.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive in a world that prizes multitasking and constant connectivity.
Right.
Why would deep work be becoming more rare and valuable at the same time?
Well, think about it this way. As automation and AI become more and more sophisticated, they're going to take over many of the routine, shallow tasks that fill our days now.
Right.
And so the skills that become really valuable are those that require deep thinking, creativity, problem solving, the complex stuff.
So it's not just about working hard, it's about working differently.
Exactly. Cultivating the skills that machines can't replicate,
Right.
deep work is really the key to developing those skills.
So give me an example.
Sure. Consider Nate Silver, the statistician who, accurately predicts elections.
Oh, yeah.
He's mastered these complex data analysis tools to gain an edge in a field where, information is everywhere, but insightful analysis is rare.
Right.
And it takes deep work to really master those tools, to really understand them.
Absolutely. I'm also thinking about David Heinemeier Hansson, the guy who built Ruby on Rails. You don't achieve that level of success by just skimming the surface.
His work is really a testament to the power of focused concentration.
Yeah.
To create something truly valuable and impactful. And it's not just about the work we produce, it's about how we learn and master new skills too.
Oh, tell me about that.
So when we're engaged in deep work, we're essentially isolating relevant neural circuits in our brains, allowing them to strengthen and become more efficient.
Okay.
It's like focusing a lens, as the
Yeah.
philosopher Antonin Dulmus or Talanges put it, to achieve deep understanding, concentrating that mental energy.
It reminds me of that story about Jason Ben, who used this intense focus to teach himself to code.
Oh, wow.
He locked himself away with textbooks and note cards, no computers, just focused on learning.
Just hardcore learning.
Hardcore. And he emerged with, the skills to land a high-paying tech job. Talked about commitment.
It really illustrates how powerful focused learning can be.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Our world seems designed to pull us in the opposite direction, towards shallow work and constant distraction.
It's so true. It's like we're surrounded by a cult of the internet, as Cal Newport calls it. Open office plans, the pressure to constantly be on social media, the FOMO.
Yeah.
It all fragments our attention and pulls us away from deep work.
Even people like Alyssa Rubin, a serious journalist, reporting from conflict zones, feel this pressure to be constantly tweeting.
It's crazy.
Makes you wonder, are we losing the ability to really focus on what matters most?
Yeah. It's not just external distractions either. We have this internal pressure too.
What do you mean?
It's this busyness as a proxy for productivity mindset.
Oh, wait.
We think that being busy equals being productive, even if all that busyness is just shallow work.
It's a subtle pressure, but it's everywhere.
Totally. We get caught in this cycle of checking emails, attending pointless meetings,
Yeah.
feeling important because we're so busy, but are we really creating anything of value?
It's a great question.
Social media is a big part of this too.
How so?
It's seductive, right? We get caught up in curating our online personas and chasing likes,
Hmm.
that we neglect the deeper, more meaningful aspects of our lives.
It's almost like we're addicted to the shallow end of the pool, afraid to dive into the depths where the real treasures lie.
That's a great way to put it. So how do we break free from this shallow cycle and rediscover the power of deep work?
That's what we'll be exploring further in this deep dive.
Okay.
But before we get too tactical, I think it's important to talk about the deeper meaning of deep work.
Okay.
It's not just about productivity or success.
Right. Let's move beyond the practical benefits.
Exactly. Deep work can be a source of profound satisfaction. Think of it as connecting with that spirit of craftsmanship,
Okay.
taking pride in creating something. Effort.
Like that story of Rick Furr, the master bladesmith.
Yeah,
His work is incredibly demanding, requires so much focus and concentration,
right.
but it's clearly so meaningful for him.
He's a great example of how finding meaning in deep work can combat stress and negativity.
It's not just about the outcome, it's about the process.
Right. It's about that journey of creating something meaningful with our full attention.
I was just thinking this resonates with what Winifred Gallagher talks about in her book, Wrapped: Attention and the Focused Life. She argues that directing our attention carefully, like intentionally choosing where we focus our mental energy, can actually make us happier.
That's a powerful idea.
It is, and it suggests that deep work isn't just a productivity hack.
Well, yeah.
It's like a path to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
And it sounds like this isn't just for certain professions.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
Yeah.
It's a way of approaching any kind of work that requires, that deep thinking and creativity.
Absolutely. Whether you're a writer, a programmer, a scientist, an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
embracing deep work can help you find more meaning and purpose in what you do.
it can.
So we've established that deep work is valuable, practically and personally, but how do we actually make it happen?
Right.
What are some tangible strategies we can use to incorporate it into our lives?
That's where we'll delve into Cal Newport's rules for deep work.
Oh, yeah.
He offers some really specific, actionable strategies for cultivating this deep work habit.
Like that idea of scheduling every minute of your day.
Yes.
That sounds intense.
It might seem rigid at first,
Yeah.
but it's really about taking control of our time and being intentional with how we spend it.
Okay.
Instead of just reacting to whatever pops up, we proactively design our days to prioritize deep work.
So it's about creating a roadmap for our day where deep work has a prominent place.
Exactly. And within that roadmap, we need to distinguish between tasks that require deep focus and those that can be handled more superficially.
So how do we actually do that? Quantify the depth of every activity.
Yeah. There are a few different methods,
Okay.
but a helpful exercise is to ask yourself, how long would it take in months to train a smart, recent college grad with no specialized training in my field to complete this task?
Okay. So if it would take a long time to train someone, that means it's probably a good candidate for deep work.
Exactly. It requires that deep thinking and expertise.
Right. Versus if it could be easily taught to a novice.
Right. That's likely a shallower task.
That makes sense.
Right.
It helps us prioritize what truly needs that deep focus. But even with all the best intentions, and strategies,
Yeah,
staying focused today is so tough.
it is.
I mean, we are bombarded with distractions.
Especially from the internet.
Especially from the internet, right? What do we do about that?
So Cal Newport recommends scheduling internet blocks,
Okay.
specific times where we allow ourselves to be online, and then specific times when we disconnect completely. It's about training our brains to resist that constant lure of the digital world and reclaim our focus.
That's a tough one, I admit.
I know it's a practice.
Yeah.
It takes time to build that mental muscle,
Right.
but the rewards are definitely worth it.
I can see that. This has been so insightful already, but maybe we need to pause here for now.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground already. The definition of deep work, why it's so valuable in today's world, and some initial strategies for incorporating it into our lives.
We've just scratched the surface, really.
We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive, exploring more practical strategies for, taming those distractions, building a sustainable deep work habit,
Right.
and ultimately rediscovering the power of focused concentration in a world that seems determined to pull us in a million directions.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into deep work. Before we dig into more strategies, I'm curious about something. We talked about the importance of scheduling every minute of our day, but
Right.
isn't that a bit extreme? Won't it make us feel like, robots?
It might sound rigid at first, yeah,
Uh,
but it's actually about reclaiming control of our time and attention.
oh.
Instead of reacting to whatever pops up,
hmm
we become the architects of our days, ensuring that deep work gets the attention it deserves.
So it's not about sticking to like a minute by minute plan, but more about being intentional about how our time flows.
Precisely. Think of it as creating a framework, a container for your day.
Okay.
Within that framework, you can have blocks for deep work, shallow work, breaks, admin tasks, and everything has its place.
I can see how that would help create mental space for those deep work sessions.
Right.
But how do we actually create this schedule? Where do we start?
Start by identifying your peak focus times.
Okay.
When do you feel most alert and energized?
Mm,
Those are the prime slots for deep work.
okay.
Block them off in your calendar and treat them as sacred, non-negotiable appointments with yourself.
I love that. A sacred appointment with myself.
It kind of shifts the perspective.
It does.
And don't forget to schedule breaks, too.
Right. Breaks.
Our brains need time to rest and recharge.
Of course.
A short walk, a few minutes of meditation, these can actually boost our focus when we return to deep work.
Breaks are essential. I sometimes feel guilty taking them, though. Like I should
Uh-huh.
be working all the time.
I understand that feeling, but remember, deep work is not about pushing ourselves to the point of burnout.
Right.
It's about sustainable productivity.
Okay.
We need to find a rhythm that allows us to work deeply without sacrificing our well-being.
Okay. So we have our schedule. We've blocked off our deep work time.
Right.
How do we ensure we actually use that time effectively?
This is where the concept of ritual comes in.
Hmm.
Having a pre-deep work ritual can help signal to our brains that it's time to shift gears and enter a state of focus.
I've heard about this, like J.K. Rowling checking into a luxury hotel to finish the last Harry Potter book. That was her grand gesture.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that elaborate, of course.
Right.
Maybe it's as simple as making a cup of tea,
Right.
putting on noise-canceling headphones,
Yeah.
lighting a candle, anything that helps you transition into that focused mindset.
I love that, creating a sense of intention and ceremony around our deep work.
Exactly.
But what about those inevitable distractions? How do we deal with them when they arise?
This is where the skill of attention management comes in.
Okay.
It's like training a muscle. The more we practice focusing our attention, the better we get at it.
So it's not just about willpower, it's about developing a skill.
It's a mental habit. And one of the most effective ways to train our attention is through mindfulness meditation.
hmm
It teaches us to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment and to gently redirect our attention back to the present moment when it wanders.
I've heard so much about mindfulness, but I've always struggled with it.
Yeah,
My mind just races with thoughts all the time.
that's completely normal.
Okay.
The key is not to judge ourselves for having those thoughts,
Right.
but simply to notice them and gently guide our attention back to our breath, our body, or whatever anchor we're using.
Right.
It's a practice, and like any practice, it takes time and patience.
Okay, so mindfulness helps us become more aware of those distractions.
Right.
What do we do once we've noticed them? How do we actually resist them?
Cal Newport offers a simple but powerful strategy. Don't give in to the urge to check.
Okay.
It's about recognizing those moments when we feel the pull to check our phone, switch tabs, or look for a distraction,
Right.
and then consciously choosing to resist that urge.
It sounds easier said than done, though, right? It's like those distractions have this magnetic pull sometimes.
They do, but here's the thing. Every time we give in to that pull, we're strengthening the neural pathways that lead to distraction.
Okay.
And every time we resist,
Mm.
we're strengthening the pathways that lead to focus.
So it's about consciously rewiring our brains, training ourselves to be less reactive.
Precisely. It's a process, but over time, we can actually retrain our minds to become more focused and less susceptible to those distractions.
This is fascinating. It's making me think about how our work environments can also be a source of distraction.
Right.
What are some strategies for creating a more focus-friendly workspace?
This is crucial.
Yeah.
If our environment is constantly bombarding us with distractions, it makes deep work so much harder.
Right.
Ideally, we want a space that's quiet, uncluttered, and free from visual distractions.
So think library, quiet coffee shop, or a dedicated home office with the door closed.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And don't underestimate the power of decluttering either.
Oh, I know that all too well.
A messy workspace can be a visual assault on our attention.
My desk tends to become a magnet for clutter.
I feel that.
What about technology? How do we manage our devices to minimize those distractions?
Think of it as creating a technology-focused balance.
Okay.
Use technology strategically to support your deep work, but don't let it take over.
Okay.
Turn off notifications, close unnecessary tabs, and consider using website blockers to prevent yourself from getting sucked into those time-wasting websites.
I need to try those website blockers.
Yeah.
It's amazing how easy it is to get pulled into that endless scroll of social media or news feeds.
It's a powerful force, and it's designed to keep us hooked,
Yeah.
but we can reclaim our attention by setting those boundaries
Right.
and using technology intentionally.
Okay, so we've talked about scheduling, rituals, attention management, creating a focus-friendly environment.
Mhm.
I'm starting to see that deep work is more than just a set of techniques. It's a whole philosophy of work.
You're absolutely right.
It's a way of approaching work with intentionality, depth, and a commitment to producing our best work.
Exactly.
And I think it goes beyond just work. It's a way of approaching life too, isn't it?
I believe so. When we cultivate the skills of deep work, we bring those skills to everything we do.
Right?
We become more present, more mindful,
Hmm.
and more engaged in the world around us.
This has been so eye-opening, but I know we have more to cover.
We do.
Let's take a short pause here and come back to explore how we can make deep work a lasting habit
Okay.
and what it really means to thrive in a world that often seems at odds with deep focus. Welcome back to our deep dive into deep work. We've explored a lot: the definition, the value, the strategies. But how do we make deep work like a lasting part of our lives? It's one thing to try it for a day or two, but how do we turn it into a habit that really sticks?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
about moving beyond the initial excitement and motivation
Yeah,
and creating a practice that really embeds itself in our lives.
totally. So what are your tips for making that happen?
Well, one of the most important things is to start small.
Okay.
Don't try to overhaul your whole routine overnight. Start with incorporating maybe just a few minutes of dedicated deep work each day
Okay.
and gradually increase the duration as you feel more comfortable.
So just like any new habit, right?
Exactly.
Patience and consistency.
You got it.
No need to become a deep work monk on day one.
Exactly. Think of it like training for a marathon.
Okay.
You wouldn't just, try to run 26 miles on your first day.
Yeah.
You'd start with shorter runs and gradually build up your endurance.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. And just like with physical training, we need to be kind to ourselves,
Right.
celebrate our progress, and don't get discouraged by setbacks.
Yeah. Consistency over perfection.
Absolutely. It's a journey,
Yeah.
not a destination. And speaking of journeys, the journey of deep work is often an inward one.
What do you mean?
Well, it requires us to confront our own distractions,
Okay.
our own resistance to focus,
Yeah.
our own ingrained habits and tendencies.
It's almost like we're relearning how to be alone with our thoughts.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, yeah.
Without the constant, stimulation of the digital world.
Exactly. Because if my phone isn't buzzing, if I'm not scrolling through something, I feel this urge to fill the space,
Right.
to find something to distract myself.
Yeah, it's so common.
Yeah.
Cal Newport talks about this. He actually encourages us to embrace boredom.
Embrace boredom.
Yeah. In today's world, we're so used to constant stimulation, we've kind of forgotten the value of stillness,
Mm-hmm.
of allowing our minds to just be.
Right.
And those moments of boredom, those pockets of quiet,
Mm.
can be fertile ground for creativity and insight.
Okay.
When we allow our minds to wander, to disconnect from the external noise, that's when new ideas often come.
Like we need to create space for those aha moments to happen.
Exactly. And it doesn't require a grand retreat or a silent meditation retreat.
Yeah.
Start by incorporating small moments of boredom into your day. Leave your phone at home when you go for a walk. Resist that urge to check email every 5 minutes. Sit in silence for a few minutes before bed.
Right.
These small acts can actually have a profound impact
Okay.
on our ability to focus
Claiming our attention bit by bit.
moment by moment.
I like that.
Yeah. And remember, it's not about becoming a Luddite,
Right.
rejecting technology.
Okay.
It's about finding a healthy balance, using technology to support our goals,
Mm.
not letting it control us.
Right. Becoming the masters of our own attention, not the slaves of our devices.
I love that.
Me too. This has been such a rich and thought-provoking conversation. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, though.
There's always more to explore, right?
Always more to explore, but as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge. If deep work is truly the superpower of the 21st century,
Mm.
what's one small change you can make this week to incorporate more of it into your life?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be radical.
Hmm.
Maybe schedule 30 minutes of uninterrupted work time. Or creating a pre-deep work ritual that signals to your brain that it's focus time.
Yeah.
Start small, experiment, and see what works.
Absolutely. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of deep work. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Until next time, keep thinking deeply, friends of